Well, welcome folks to the Q&A with the Pennsylvania Insurance Department. We're still going to wait another minute or so to allow more attendees to get online. But just in case you were wondering if you were in the right place, now you know you are. Okay. This is Ron Gallagher with the Pennsylvania Association of Mutual Insurance Companies, along with Sam Marshall of the Insurance Federation of Pennsylvania, bringing you our weekly phone call with the insurance department. This is becoming pretty routine now. Other than my opening comments, which generally deal with antitrust issues, we just need to be aware of those. And if anybody believes we're broaching any of those issues, please text me, email me, or somehow make your concern known, and we will deal with it appropriately. It's my pleasure once again to introduce Mike Humphreys, the Chief of Staff at the Insurance Department, who is going to be opening up the conversation from basically what's going on at the department, and then help respond to any questions and answers questions that you may raise. Once again, to ask a question, simply use the Q&A feature that you can find on the bottom or the top of your screen. It's the easiest way to do that. You could also use the chat function as well. But with that, Mike, I want to turn it over to you, and want to say thank you again, and I hope you're doing well.
Sure. Thanks, Ron. Thank you, Sam. Appreciate the opportunity to join you all again today. I'm going to go ahead and urge people to start putting in their questions now, because we don't have a heavy agenda at the front end. There's just a couple of updates that we wanted to provide, and then move into the Q&A. In part because the last guidance that we issued was actually issued, I think, last Monday or Tuesday, and we had the opportunity to talk with you all first about the guidance relative to premium finance arrangements and some of the other items that were going forward at that time. But I do want to turn it over to Shannon Logue, our deputy over product regulation, to give a high-level summary of kind of what we've been seeing on the rates and form filing side since we've put out our guidance through SURF on how to file the various different programs that particularly auto carriers, but now several other in the PC industry, have started to file to get money back in the hands of their policyholders. So I'll turn that over.
Thanks, Mike. So thank you again for the introduction. And I just wanted to start by thanking a lot of our insurers for thinking of our consumers, assessing your current risk, taking the opportunity to adjust rates in the form of paybacks, credits, and return premiums. As since last week, we did kind of do the business as usual for filings. We have seen an uptick, which is good and great. But I just wanted to give you an overview of kind of what we're seeing in the premium relief filings, as well as some reminders on the guidance. So I'll start first with the reminders. We sent out guidance via SURF on 4/9, but have also posted that guidance now to our website. So from the homepage, you can select Learn More from the COVID-19 image. And then you want to click on the Insurer Producer Resources, scroll down to the bottom where you see the bulletins and guidance. And then it's in the guidance named Auto Insurance Payback and Credit Program Expedited Filing Review Guidance. So in that, you're going to see basically where we're recommending that if you do have something that you're thinking about, for your business and your rates, that you're able to take the opportunity to file it. That's a big thing that we're asking, is that you file it. We wanted to remind our insurers that even though we're very grateful for your efforts and your creative approaches, the guidance is issued to help each of you kind of keep your plans in compliance. They were written in a way to ensure compliance with the anti-rebating laws, specifically when you think about all of the different types of opportunities that you can do. So doing now an overview, I wanted to kind of talk about what we've seen so far, and these are not listed in any particular order, but we have seen 1 for commercial auto, 19 filings for personal auto, and these have all been reviewed and approved, by the way. We have 2 that came in as a combination of personal auto and motorcycle, and we have 2 for homeowners insurance, 3 for med mal, and 2 for business owners policy. So again, if you have any questions about that, or if you're thinking of something that you feel does not follow the guidance, we're asking for is that you can reach out to us. We're willing to have conversations. But the big takeaway here is follow the guidance. It's trying to keep you in compliance, especially with the anti-rebating laws. And if you did want to know what that law is, you can look it up. It's the 40 PS. The statute number is 471. And just to remind you guys, there's multiple things in there that talk about earnings, profits, dividends, and other fundings arising, accruing, to accrue on. And the big point is that because these items are potentially still in force, the filing and following one of the 3 options will keep you in compliance. And that's all I have. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, thanks, Shannon. And again, going to encourage anyone to start submitting their questions because that's the main agenda item that we wanted to highlight today. The 2 other items that I will briefly mention to give some folks the opportunity to ask questions is we appreciate everyone responding so quickly to the surveys that came out from Joe's team over the last couple of weeks. We got a number of those in, and that was kind of a collaborative effort with the industry reaching out to the NAIC and then state regulators working together to narrow questions to those that we thought would be helpful to us and not too burdensome to you all. So we got some good data there. I don't know if Joe, if you wanted to mention anything else about that and what next steps there may be other than we're obviously in the collection and review stage.
Yeah, the only thing I would mention, Mike, I think I'd like to thank the companies. We had an excellent response. I touched base with our supervisors today in regards to what was still outstanding. And, I think and we sent out to all Pennsylvania companies. So we had approximately 250 surveys that went out. There's probably only maybe 10 to 15 that are still outstanding and that we're doing follow-up with. Obviously, there's some responses that are more complex than the others based on the size of the company as compared to a smaller mutual or fraternal that provided us a response. But I think by and large, the companies gave us exactly what we asked for. And I anticipate there will be more coming down the road. I think this was an initial feel for operations in regards to how the insurance companies are operating and what concerns they have in relation to the financial lines of business that they wrote. I think once we get past the first quarter and there's a filing that takes place and we see the kinds of impacts it may have had, although I don't expect that we're going to see much at the end of the first quarter. We'll see more at the end of the second quarter. And that there'll be follow-up surveys that come down the road. But I want to just thank all the companies for taking the time. We gave you about a week and you met the deadline and provided us good information that we should be aware of and have be mindful of in regards to how companies are operating and what concerns that we should be prepared to look for coming down the road. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Joe. And that actually answered one of the first questions that we received on what next steps may be. So one other item, actually maybe 2 items before we move into the additional questions, and I see one, so you feel free to keep them coming. But last Wednesday, I think it was, Secretary Levine had issued some guidance on employers that have folks coming into the office, life-sustaining businesses, and how the safety measures that you can employ or have to employ, and that includes having employees wear masks when they're in the office. One question was asked of us. We do this call also for health carriers on every Friday. And one question that came up was in regards to taking employees' temperatures and whether the employer could require employees to kind of self-screen at home before coming into the office and have that be the plan of operation for ensuring that there are no fevers on the way to the office. And Health actually posted guidance this morning that was pretty extensive Q&A document for employers on all aspects of the guidance that they issued last week. And since we've had this question come up a couple of times now, I'll highlight that on page 4. The answer is no to that question. I mean, it's not sufficient just to have people self-screen at home. There should be a process in place to take temperatures upon arrival at the workplace. That and other questions can be made available or are available on the Health website. I think Sam, you also have the website link for your members, and Ron, I don't know that I forwarded that to you, but I'll be sure to do it after the call, just so you have the information to the Q&A doc. And then before moving further into the Q&A, one issue that we have had come up a couple of times from life carriers now over the last couple of weeks was whether the specimen collection individuals in businesses could go out to go collect the blood samples and others to effectuate a policy. And we did receive some guidance from the Department of Community Development earlier today, confirming that they had given guidance in one case to say, yes, that's considered life-sustaining, that they can go out, obviously subject to all the precautionary and safety measures as possible. So just wanted to share that, which we received anecdotally, but then obviously has some broad application to a couple of the other members on the call. So with all that being said, I'll turn it first over to find out if there's anyone else from the department that wanted to make any comments before we move forward with the Q&A.
Hey, Mike, this is Ron.
Sure.
I know I'm no longer with the insurance department, but
Okay.
I did push out an update today that may be of interest to a lot of the attendees. I believe it was the Department of Health or maybe DCED issued an update on where businesses may be able to get personal protective equipment. And that's been an issue that the week. It's just hard for small businesses who are in life-sustaining operations to find the appropriate PPE they're dealing with out, and about. So I don't know if you're aware of that, but we pushed that out as well, and I wanted the attendees to know.
Okay, great. Thanks. Appreciate that. So now I'm going to move over to questions. Shannon, it looks like the first one's going to be for you. It asks about, I think if you could go back through some of your numbers, they ask how many auto carriers have submitted a program to quote unquote refund premium. And there was a follow-up question to that on commercial versus personal.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mike. So the numbers, and I don't have it broken out by the type of programs. It's really just any kind of premium relief program. So there's 19 personal auto that we've seen, and these are 19 different plans that have been submitted and reviewed. And we do have one commercial auto. And again, it would probably be more for that smaller commercial auto risk.
Very good. Laura, I hope you're on this because it looks like we have a question for you.
I'm on.
Perfect. Does the department plan to submit the preliminary rehab plan regarding the SHIP LTC matter this week as originally?
The answer is yes. We do plan to make the filing on Wednesday.
There you go. Very good. Thank you, Laura. Okay, next question. Has there been any discussion with the governor regard to allowing contractors to return to work, at least for exterior jobs such as roofs, siding, framing, etc.? And that is awfully timely, as the governor issued a press release earlier today announcing online vehicle sales process, construction restart date, and looks like liquor pickup. But construction with strict guidelines in the press release, it says, and I'll just read it for you. Public and private residential and non-residential construction may resume statewide starting Friday, May 8th, in accordance with safety guidance that will be issued by the administration shortly. Construction projects already deemed life-sustaining may continue while adhering to social distancing, personnel limits, and other guidance as announced by the Any update on the, actually, let me just, there is a question, if you submitted the question, if this is the correct forum, it looks like you meant to paste something and nothing came across. So if that question sounds like it was your question, you may want to go in and check to see what we were intending to be looking at there. Next question, can you provide insight how an insurer should advise a commercial auto policy holder who has canceled their policy? The law requires the registration tags to be returned to PennDOT, but the service centers are closed. John Lasik, are you on the call, and do you have a thought on how we may best proceed there?
Yeah, I am on the call. I think the best piece of guidance that you could give to your insureds right now is to check with PennDOT in how they want these things done. PennDOT has, if you go to their website, they do have an FAQ that is really pretty thorough and addresses a lot of different questions you may have. I'm not sure if this specific item is on their FAQ, but to the extent that PennDOT has modified how they are doing things, I would, the best advice you could give to your policyholders is to contact PennDOT and, you know, obviously just remind them of the consequences of canceling a policy, and then to seek guidance from PennDOT to the extent that it's not in their FAQ on their website.
Very good. Thanks, John. Next question is a Chris question that I'll take a first stab at. The question is, any thought about granting temporary producers licenses since the testing centers are closed? Generally, this is an issue that we are continuing to look at and figure out how we would best structure something like that. So I would say stay tuned in pretty short order. We have heard from several companies, several trades about this issue. So did want to make sure everybody is aware that we are looking very closely at it. Chris, is there any update that you can provide outside of that on kind of the testing centers or when we plan to be able to get up and running on electronic testing?
Electronic remote testing, we hope to be having go live sometime later in the summer. As far as temp licensing, you did a good job summarizing that. The testing centers themselves, as of right now, they are still closed through the 30th of April, and you know, we're hoping to get some sort of update based off all the different guidance that's being issued. So as soon as we hear anything on the testing centers, we'll make sure we update our notices and information for everyone.
Thanks, Chris. Carriers are doing everything they can to accommodate their policyholders. This will have a negative impact on most carriers' results depending on lines of business written. It would seem work comp carriers will be hit the hardest due to the shutdowns as well as potential claims liabilities. Any sense of how AM Best may be looking at the impact of the pandemic on insurer carrier results? I'm going to pitch that over to Joe DeMemo, but I think generally it may still be too early to know how this is going to play out from a claims and financial standpoint, given that we're probably 4 to 6 weeks into the scenario where carriers have started to really grant significant accommodations. And it to the questioner's point, in some industries, I think we're seeing a very big slowdown in terms of the type of claims that one would expect. Others, it's potentially picking up. But Joe, have you heard anything about how rating agencies may be looking at it or may think about it?
Now, Mike, I think you answered it the best way we can. I think it's a little early at this point to get a full understanding of how they're going to view it. They recognize the issues and recognize the problems, and there is some talk about it, but at this point, we have no firm guidance in regards to how they're going to look at that.
Thanks, Joe.
Yep.
And here's the follow-up to is this the correct forum? There has been a mounting discussion about claims because of business closure, even with a GL policy type, not necessarily business interruption. Seems lawsuits are beginning to form. Is this a discussion for this forum? I appreciate you putting that on our radar. It's certainly something that I think can come up, and if there's any more specific questions on that, you can reach on over to us offline. John, I don't have any other kind of immediate reaction to that, and I don't know if you or maybe Jody have any initial thoughts.
Yeah, I think we have seen the initiations of some lawsuits. I don't believe we've seen necessarily lawsuits here in Pennsylvania, but obviously you've seen the BI lawsuits filed in California, claiming there needs to be BI coverage, and we have heard other lawsuits that either have been filed or there's talk that they may be filed. I think that I don't think surprises us. I think everyone going into this probably expected there to be some litigation over coverage. We are keeping our eyes on them, and we're staying apprised of what's being filed, what the legal claims are, and then eventually if there's settlement and or rulings on those, we'll obviously stay apprised of that. But yeah, at this point, we are just in the monitoring stage. Again, I think we're at the beginning. I think there probably will be more lawsuits filed, and we'll see what the outcome is on those.
Thanks, John. Next question. Is the department or the co-sponsors aware whether there are any developments on proposed changes to the Life and Health Guarantee Fund law regarding assessment reallocation? Sam, I might pitch that one over to you. With the introduction of, we had worked very closely with the IFP on turning the NAIC Guarantee Fund model into Pennsylvania speak, and we're getting awfully close kind of before COVID really started hitting its peak. But if you had any thoughts, Sam, welcome them.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, that is along with the credit for reinsurance legislation, those would be, and the mental health parity legislation, those would be three top non-COVID-19 legislative priorities for the industry and I think for the department. But right now, everything in our legislative process has been put to the sidelines as we wrestle with COVID-19, both the health aspects of it and trying to figure out how to reopen our economy.
Thanks, Sam. Question: for the benefit of homeowners carriers, is there any movement allowing the realtors to function soon? And I know I had seen maybe in a press release that talks about real estate issues, but I'm blanking off the top of my head. I don't know if John or anyone else has seen any updates in terms of real estate.
Yeah, I do recall, and I don't have it off the top of my head here in front of me, but I do recall there is movement on allowing realtors to operate virtually, and then certain ability to do a one-on-one closing. I don't know the status of that, but yes, it is something that is being discussed, and I have heard movement on it.
John, Sam here. To the extent you're involved with that, the the hook on it, and if you can raise this with whoever you're talking with, we're talking to the realtors, but I think the real impediment is in-person inspection requirements. So, I mean, your realtor can do a closing virtually, but, in terms of the inspection requirement, that seems to be where the real rub is in terms of freezing real estate transactions.
All right, thanks, Sam. We'll take that back.
Yeah, if we find any additional guidance on that, Sam and Ron, we'll send it to you all in a separate email so you can get it back out. We'll ask some questions this week to see if there's any update on the department's position on creating a fund to be administered by the department to pay BI claims for small businesses? Short answer is no. With the release of the guidelines opening up America again, is there any sense of when PA will start loosening restriction? I think the press releases, well, two of them issued today, and one of them I think was just sent out to everyone through the chat feature, talks about, at least initially, some of the items like construction that may be opening up. I think there's been a lot of talk, and Sandy, correct me, from Washington on opening up elective procedures again. Obviously, there was both state and federal restrictions on medical procedures that probably started about a month ago now. And I think the governor has put out his plan at the end of last week, a three-step plan, and looking for, there's going to be a lot of data, and the plan also provides several policy proposals that'll be important as we begin to look at opening up the state again more broadly. So I think that's something to stay tuned. And if you get a chance to look at Governor Wolf's plan from the end of last week, I would encourage you to do so. And I can try to send that, although Ron and Sam, you both probably have that link already to the governor's plan. So why don't you go ahead and send that out potentially to the members after the call also. Given the PA Supreme Court decision calling this pandemic a natural disaster, does the department have an opinion about existing pandemic coverage exclusionary language? I think this continues to fall along the lines of I would guess, to an extent, business interruption. I don't think, I'm not familiar enough with whatever PA Supreme Court decision came out recently, so I don't know if any of the attorneys are familiar with that case or have any thoughts.
I think that we are reviewing the decision to determine its implications right now. As always, we don't make coverage decisions and we don't opine on coverage decisions. We would obviously recommend, however, any Supreme Court ruling is the law of the land as if it had been codified. And so, to the extent that you have concerns about that, we would certainly advise you to review the decision and consult with your legal counsel to determine its impact on pandemic exclusions to the extent it has one.
Yeah, John, this is Sam again. I think the reference is to a case that actually came up for a person running for office who was protesting, to the court, restrictions on being able essentially to run a campaign. And the court went into the governor's powers under the emergency orders. There have been, there have been some plaintiffs' lawyers who have taken that and said, hey, that's going to be our theory for trying to, say that essentially, the business, that there is a physical loss and therefore there should be coverage in business interruption. I mean, it's a legal theory. There've been articles on it, and I think there have been cases filed in Pennsylvania, trying to recover under business interruption, coverage, that the exclusions in various policies don't hold up in the case. I mean, so with or without legislation, there is litigation on that. But that's it's not quite as clear cut as that question may have made it sound as to what is a pandemic in terms of natural disasters and all that, because it was a much different issue presented to the court.
Right, Sam. This is Ron. Yeah, it's a moving target, and every week we seem to get different information, different pieces of the puzzle start getting identified. What I would suggest is the attendees on this call, whether you're a PAMIC or an IFP attendee, we both host meetings throughout the week on various topics. I do know for the Friday How Goes It for the PAMIC members, this is going to be a topic that we'll be discussing. In fact, it's been discussed on every How Goes It since we started it. But now that there's some new information, the panelists that we have will be able to share some more insights with the attendees.
And if you're looking for the case, just as if you want to read the case, it is Friends of Danny DeVito. It's a real name, but it's Friends of Danny DeVito v. Wolf. Suspected Google Friends of Danny DeVito v. Wolf, you'll find not only the case will come up, but so will the articles or blurbs from some lawyers saying, hey, that may give rise to business interruption coverage.
Correct.
Yeah,
Hey,
I do
Mike.
see one other question.
All right, good, Mike. That's what I was going to point out.
In the Q&A or chat function. And this question gets back to the issue that briefly touched on earlier, and that is in the FAQ document that I think Ron has now made available through the chat feature for everyone to link to. And the question relates again to temperature taking procedures and what's appropriate and what's not. And without kind of any medical background, I'm not going to talk about kind of temperature taking procedures other than to pitch you to the professionals and to the guidance issued by Dr. Levine in the form of the FAQ. With that, Ron, I don't see any other questions coming up, and I'll turn it back over to anyone else on the PID side to see if there was any issues that came up to them that during the course of the call that have been kind of issues that they've had some questions about in their area and wanted to share, or any other thoughts. Not hearing any, Ron.
Okay.
I think we're about ready to shut down.
Okay, Mike, thank you. And Mike, what I'd like to do is schedule these out for at least through May 8th, if that's fine with you folks. Was that Joe DeMemo? I heard this gasp of air being released, having to deal with this phone call.
Yeah, I enjoy these, Ron. Just
Oh,
so you
good.
know that.
Good for you. All right. So if you don't mind, Mike, I think these have been very helpful on both sides. So we'll continue these on Mondays, 3 o'clock, at least through May 8th, when we may have more guidance from the governor's office on opening up Pennsylvania and the economy. Sam, as usual, I'd like to turn it over to you for closing comments and
Yeah,
say
one thing,
goodbye.
May 8th being a Friday, we may want to continue it at least through May 11th.
Thank you. Thank you.
But also for everybody on the call, I believe the governor today is signing, if he hasn't already signed, Senate Bill 841, which does provide for remote notarizations. Mike, we still get complaints about not so much state agencies, but local agencies in the bonding area, surety bonds, requiring wet signatures. And I know you and I both asked for specific examples, and we're getting at least somewhat specific examples on that, and I'll share them with you. That might be But to the extent that people are finding notarization problems, hopefully the remote notarization will help. And if you're finding impediments, particularly through government agencies requiring wet signature instead of allowing for e-signature, let me or Ron know, and we'll relay it to everybody we can, because that shouldn't be happening, and it makes absolutely no sense that government agencies, local or state, would be imposing it.
Okay, thank you, Sam, and thank you to our attendees for listening in on another phone call. Please join us next Monday at the same time for additional information. Please be safe out there, and good luck.
Thank you.